Hello, my name is Claire Juliet Chater. I'm a shamanic healer and therapist. Let's call myself today, I'm one hell of a therapist. And I just want to bring up victim mode. And just talk a little bit about victim mode because I was totally in victim mode around my ulcerative colitis. I was diagnosed when I was 9 and it controlled my life for about 24 years. Very, very interesting, that lengthy process, but I would always, in the forefront of my head, say I am doing so well to cope with this. And I thought I was always quite encouraging of myself, telling myself, well done. You cope with, crapping your pants daily at school really freaking well. You just took it on the chin, got on with life. You didn't break down. Nothing kind of stopped you. And you've lived with it basically, unmedicated I haven't had to take a prescription, unmedicated, just controlled it with diet for 24 years. Controlled it. Basically lived with diarrhea, pretty much, but didn't have to take medication. That's kind of what I did. And I was like, it's okay having the little bits of diarrhea because at least I'm not on medication, and at least, I live in this beautiful country, I've got a beautiful family, and would just pick out all the stuff that I was really grateful for and push that under the rug and just put loads of gratitude on top of it and say you're not allowed to complain about this because that would make you ungrateful type of space. And I washed it with a lot of positivity, and I had a really militant spiritual practice and would meditate all the time and do lots of spiritual techniques so that I could see energy, I could protect my energy body, and I could do all these amazing spiritual things. But would only help me suppress it even more because I was still able to live day to day and nobody knew there was anything wrong, quote unquote wrong, and I didn't really admit to myself when things weren't great. There'd be blood in the poo for 2-3 months on end, and I'd be like, I'll just up my spiritual practice, I'll meditate for an extra half an hour per day, I can do this, I can get over it, rather than reaching out for help and saying, this isn't good enough, I haven't got this, what am I missing? Wanting to change, wanting to get over it, and being like, I haven't managed this for 24 years, so if I keep doing the same blooming thing, I'm going to carry on getting the same results. What do I do? And I had no idea how to switch it up because I was like, I'm actually quite good at maintaining this. Quite good. Just good enough to have my life livable. But is my life epic? Have I got completely, go once a day and have great poo? I mean, no. I was like, yeah, my life could be totally better if I am actually honest with myself. Living with diarrhea means that ulcerative colitis is affecting me on a daily basis, and it does get me down, and I do have the fear, and it was causing loads of anxiety that I had absolutely no idea about until the anxiety left, and I was like, what? I would always be feeling slightly on edge all the time. Probably why I had diarrhea, because I'm slightly was slightly over buzzing all the time. But it wasn't, and I was so used to living in that space that I had no idea it was there. That's one of the things that gets me. It's like the depression one. I had no idea I was in depression until I was out of it, which is the craziest thing, because it's then, how do you put your finger on something and get help for something that you don't even realise you need help for? It's madness. And it wasn't until the anxiety shifted that I went, oh, well, this is different. This is better. This is more chilled out. I feel more grounded, more happy, more everything. So, I mean, that is the big question. How do you get over anxiety that you don't know you have? But if I ask myself, deep down, I did know that I had anxiety. I did know. I knew that I was always a bit on edge. I knew that I was uncomfortable around other people because, hence the anxiety. What happens if somebody finds out that I've got diarrhea the whole time? What happens then? So I would make myself the outsider. I wouldn't really I'd let people in, but not really in. Not really close. I prefer to be the outsider so that nobody knew. But it was almost like I wasn't doing that on purpose, because I wasn't being honest with myself about that. I wouldn't even admit to myself that there was a problem. I'd say, I'm quite happy living with diarrhea, and I'm so grateful for this, that, and the other. I'm fine. Thank you. Shut up, suppress, go away. Yeah, and it wasn't until I started the shamanic path that I went, I've got to do something about this. This isn't good enough. And being honest with myself about the anxiety and about the stress levels and about the victim mode. I was absolutely blissfully unaware that I had total victim mode around my ulcerative colitis, because I would tell myself, you deal with this really well. Well done. Pat on the back. Really, really good. So I was like, how can that be victim mode if I'm celebrating myself and telling myself that I've done such a good job? Because in the back of my head, I was also didn't want to do things, would do things begrudgingly. If I had to go out and didn't know where the toilet was going to be, I would just freak out, not tell anyone, and be in this complete victim mode and have to push myself and go through these things rather than enjoying a nice day out. It would be a chore and stressful. And I was carrying around all these victim stories about having to need to know where the toilet is. The fact that I crap myself all the time. What were the other ones? I had so many victim stories around ulcerative colitis. And it was feeling sorry for myself and being like, but you had to live with this for 24 years, but you've done so well, but still. And I was like pitying myself, feeling sorry for myself, but under this wash of, you've done so well. But I was being a total victim and totally controlled by it. And realising that, just somebody going, you're in victim mode around this. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm really proud of myself for getting through all of that. Total victim stories. Everywhere. All over the bloody place. And that is what shifted the patterns for me. Because I had no idea of these victim stories. And then once I knew, I was like, oh, wow, I do have victim stories. And that's what's keeping me in this illness. What? So little by little, I would just go, that's another story, that's another story, that's another story, and pick them all out and release them all. And it was the best thing I've ever done for myself in my whole entire life. And I had associated victim people with like negative, bad. I was like, oh, I don't want to be one of those. I'm not a victim. Oh, no. No. I'm not a person that goes around telling everyone how awful, you know, how awful things are. And yeah, it's all my sexual abuse instances that happened when I was before 18. And I'm going to, you know, tell the whole world and sit in my victim so that I get pity and love. I was like, I don't do that. I am a person that keeps everything to myself. Won't tell anyone. So I didn't want to be labelled as a victim. So much so that I wasn't owning up to myself, my own victim stories. And when I went, victim stories isn't a bad thing. This is something freaking amazing that I get to release. Yes! Woohoo! And yeah, it was so funny. But I was keeping myself locked and trapped in that place because to me, victim stories was a negative thing that I shouldn't be doing. I was like, I don't do that. No, I don't do that. Of course not. I don't have any victim stories. I'm not a victim. But I did. Probably way more than somebody that keep always talking about it, to be honest. I'd suppressed loads. And if you're interested in hearing any of them, I have done a full YouTube playlist of every single victim story that I could think of around my ulcerative colitis. Epic. So, I wonder if you have any. And I want to get better at noticing mine going forward. It's so interesting. I want to get better at noticing these stories when they start. So just what are yours? Because just noticing them is the start to getting them up and out. Out of your life, out of your patterns. And free, get you free. Oh, so freeing. Freeing, liberating. So, being a victim ain't no bad thing. Noticing your victim stories is one of the best, most positive and loving things that you could do for yourself. Kisses and hugs and love, 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 love. Ruby chai.